Warm your heart. This is Gregory Kaidanov. He's 64 years old and he stands up because he sees Magnus Carlsen, his opponent, approaching. As a mark of respect, he stands up and shakes his hands. What an amazing gesture there. He's 64 years old, a legend in US chess, an amazing chess coach, and in this tournament, he's played phenomenally well. He beat Jordan Van Forest in the last round and is right now on 5 out of 7. The game has begun. Magnus opens with 1d4. And Kaidanov plays his pawn to d5. What an exciting battle we have on our hands. Let's see how this pans out. Magnus takes his time and then goes for the London system. Well, when Kaidanov was in his prime, that was roughly in the early 2000s, and he was rated about 2600. The London system wasn't considered as potent a weapon as it is now. Let's see if he manages to neutralize Magnus's London. E3 played, and now how does black continue? Knight c6 is one idea, knight f6 is another, and he's taking his time trying to figure out and see what he can do. So he goes knight to c6 here, and Magnus is ready with his response, plays c3. So the London system is very simple. You build a triangle here, you put your bishop outside the pawn chain, you bring your knight to f3, your other knight to d2, and you play your bishop to d3. This is the general way in which London system players play. And Kaidanov says, I don't see what white is doing. I'm just simply going to develop all my pieces and I'll bring my bishop out if needed. He goes first knight d2. Now, here the question does remain that should you play e6, which Kaidanov has done, or do you want to go bishop f5? It's a more ambitious way to play, but then white can go and start hassling this pawn. So Kaidanov goes solid. Magnus brings his knight out to f3. And now, a very concrete way to deal with the London. He takes on d4. So generally you avoid this exchange because white can improve his structure by taking this pawn and then getting a semi-open e file. However, the point is not that from here you're going to play normally as black. You're going to play very concretely with knight h5. So this is the move that Kaidanov has prepared. He's attacking the bishop. If the bishop goes to g5, he wants to kick it away with f6. So Magnus goes bishop e3. Of course, he's well prepared for this line. But now you go bishop d6, preparing knight f4. If white goes g3 trying to prevent it, then the knight can come back. But Magnus says, I'm okay with you coming to f4, and he puts his bishop on d3. The knight jumps to f4 and the knight had to be taken. So now black can also take back, and we reach a position where black has the bishop pair, but look at the white pieces. So beautifully positioned, and the bishop is also nicely looking on this long diagonal. White now castles, and Kaidanov also can simply castle it out here. That seems like the most logical thing to do. There are other options as well. You can drop your bishop back. Yeah, he castles. That's fine. And how should white continue now is the question. I think a very useful move is rook e1. Exactly, Magnus does just that. He puts his rook on e1. The rook is going to be useful on this semi-open file. Bishop d7, completing the development here. And later on, you could try to play queen c7, connect the rooks. And now knight d3, Magnus plays this with 1 hour 28 minutes on the clock. This has been played rarely before. The idea is to go to c5, so he provokes d6, and now you will see what Magnus's plan is. Queen e2, and later he will hit this with a4, a5. So the b6 pawn has been provoked there. g6 played by Kaidanov, and this move in general is a useful move. Maybe the bishop can make its way back here. a4 played by Magnus, and a very useful move here. He is trying to hassle the queen side with a5. f6 played. Wow. So if black can get e5 break, he would be very, very happy in this position. But it's not so easy, and Magnus instantly goes bishop b5. His idea is to take and chop off this pawn on e6. So Kaidanov has to be careful here. He goes queen c7. Good move by Gregory there. He also is now making way for the rook to come to e8, defending the pawn and also promoting the idea of e5 break. So black's position looks completely fine, and Magnus goes a5. So here, if you were to take knight a5, then after knight a5, there's a lot of play happening on the queen side. So Kaidanov ignores it and brings his rook to e8. You can see there Magnus now focusing. He has played the opening very quickly, just taking roughly 4 minutes for his last few moves. And now for this move itself, he took 12 minutes, because this is the moment when you want to really focus yourself. Bishop at 6 played by Kaidanov. A takes b6. And now, how does Gregory respond? He also takes back. Now this bishop going to h6 was an important moment, because you could have also gone back to d6 there. That was feasible. How does Magnus continue now is the question. Where is your play coming from here? And Magnus answers this question with the move c4. A good idea here is to ignore this. Just play king h8, come out of this diagonal. If you go king h8, pawn takes, this is very good for black. But Kaidanov decides here to take on c4, and he tells Magnus that I don't think that your position is so good. Yes, my e6 pawn is weak, but so is your d4 pawn. So Magnus now goes and chops off the pawn. He also pins the knight here. And queen d6 played. I really feel after king h8 would have been a much more useful move, but queen d6 is coming out of the pin. Magnus goes rook a6. Fantastic move. He's attacking this pawn and it's hanging. You need to defend it in some way. Rook b8 played by Kaidanov here. And if given some time, he would like to maybe put this rook here, maybe exchange the queens with queen d5. But Magnus goes knight c5. What a move there. If you take the knight, I take back, I hit your queen. And if you go back, I take. And these are the tactics in the air. So Kaidanov finds a beautiful move, knight d4. And you can see there Magnus also takes back. But this is the point that Gregory has actually seen it. Here, he can now take queen takes c5. Fantastic chess. So if bishop d7 takes, then there's rook e8. Maybe you have to take here with the rook, but it's not a huge advantage for white. So black should be fine there. Magnus can indulge in these tactical bouts, but they are not really giving him an advantage. So he goes rook a7. Nice move there. Now very important to play this rook to d8. The reason for that is that later on, this rook can come here in many lines when f7 is hanging. So, to come to f7. And he finds it. This was really tough. This rook was not a good move. He finds rook b d8. Fantastic chess by Kaidanov. b4 played by Magnus. He's forcing his opponent to take a call here. And now you must take the queen. That seems like the appropriate solution. Yes, he takes. Queen takes. Bishop takes c4. And now black must go b5. Fighting for the space. And then he's doing very well. But he goes rook e8. And this is the mistake that Magnus was waiting for. Kaidanov is down to 16 minutes. Magnus now pushes the pawn. And this is the point. Even though white is a pawn down, his rook is active. This pawn is weak. This rook is active. And now the knight gets this beautiful square on c6. So Gregory goes back bishop c8. But now knight to c6. And Magnus not going to cash in easily. This move like bishop e6 and stuff, he's not going to play there. He is going to calmly go knight c6 and build up the pressure. Because now if you go rook d7 trying to fight here, rook takes e6 is a kaboom move. So rook d6 has to be played, and now this pawn is defended. Magnus can still press. How does he press here? He goes rook c7, and his idea is to bring the other rook this way. Complete bind on the position. Black pieces are very passive. And for Kaidanov, maybe king h8 is an important move. No, he goes bishop d7. But now it's time for Magnus to bring his other rook into the game. We can see Hikaru in the background there. And Magnus brings his rook to a1. The rook is coming to a7 on the 7th rank. How should black continue here? It's unclear. It's unclear. And Kaidanov is in big trouble time-wise as well. He has just 5 minutes left on the clock. He goes bishop f8. Magnus, on the other hand, has 58 minutes on the clock. Here, the rook moves into the 7th. Now the bishop is hanging. Both the rooks are doubled up. It looks like the game is coming to an end. But bishop takes c6. Kaidanov keeps fighting. He takes, Magnus takes with the pawn. The pawn is just 2 steps away from queening. But notice that there are opposite colored bishops on the board, and there could be some hopes to fight for a draw here. So check first, and now the king has to come up on g2. Magnus taking his time. He's maybe even considering a move like bishop f1 as a possibility. But I mean, logical is to just go king g2. The reason why you would even consider bishop f1 is because now rook c1 would attack the bishop and also place the rook behind the pawn. Yes, rook c1 played. And now bishop b5 or bishop a6 might be the best moves in the position. But it's not so easy. Like if you go bishop a6, bishop d6, there is rook g7 followed by maybe c7 coming up at the right point. But Magnus goes rook a4. He brings his rook back, defends the bishop b5 played by Kaidanov. Fantastic move here. Bishop takes b5, and now he can actually go and attack here. Rook c5. So Magnus's coordination is broken. The material is still even. Yes, the c pawn is strong, but it might fall. Now rook b4 is important to defend this. Nobody goes bishop c4. And here black had a great move, which is f5. And why is this great? Because next when you play take, let's say for example I go bishop b3, take, and you go take king g7 and rook a7, then king f6 is possible. But f5 was such a tough move to find, and so he goes bishop d6. But now Magnus goes rook b7, and very important move, because now if you take, there is bishop b5 winning the game, so he cannot really take. He goes king h8, but you know this bishop is a gymnast. It is going to do many acrobatic stuff on the board, and one of them is to chop this pawn. If you take the bishop, rook a8 is a checkmate happening, and if you take this pawn, then bishop d7 just sort of hits both the rooks. So rook e7 played, but now Magnus is winning this game with rook takes on e7, bishop takes on e7. Yes, take, bishop takes on e7, and now comes a nice check here on a8. King has to come up, king g7. We have reached move 40, but the position is lost. Rook a7 attacks here. If you go king f8, then c7, c8 is coming. So he takes the pawn on c6, but now Magnus takes the bishop. The only hope is if king f8, the rook has to move, and you can take this bishop, but Magnus has seen it through how to win here. He goes rook f7 check, and I think it's time to call it a day. f6 is falling, and Magnus has won the game. A very, very interesting battle. Shake of hands there. Fantastically played by the world number 1 Magnus Carlsen, but really Great fight by Kaidanov, and there Magnus says you should have gone b5 there instead of allowing b5 in that position which we just saw. And then you play rook e8 is what he's saying. That would really give this great space in the position.